to be on. Mic needs to be on for you all to hear me talking, everyone. Geez, like I tried to say, but none of y'all heard. I am still waking up. Just got up about an hour or so ago. Most of that time was spent just sort of getting the office in a usable state so I could actually sort of work in here today. The temp job I've been working has been absolutely insane for me mental health wise, but we're getting through it and we're getting cash to get through the holidays. Brian, Tanner, good to see you, friends. Glad you could join us. How is your Sunday treating you so far? Brian, I know you're East Coast, so you're about halfway through the day already. Let's get everything laid out. Yeah, pretty excited about today's build. Pretty excited about this one. We are going to be building, in case the title didn't give it away, a Tiger Lite with PBTFans Purpolch caps and ink black V2s. These were all pre-lubed, so no messing with that on my end. In case you've never seen one before, there we go. Ink black V2 switches, please focus. How do I do that? There we go. Yeah. Pretty black switch. Very deep sounding housing too. I may get out of bed soon. Yeah, it's, you hit that point in the day where unless you just have to get things done, sometimes you're just like, oh, I guess I'll get out of bed. So let's take a quick listen to these switches. And that is with a die-sub PBT keycap. These are very deep sounding switches. So we are going to try and play into that today with our build. So let's get going on that. So this is the GMMK Pro Flex Kit that I've been using as my daily driver. I have had to rebuild it already, actually. I found a problem with the polycarbonate plate. It's not necessarily the fault of the plate, but suffice it to say, I found out I have a warped PCB for my GMMK Pro, so I have to use rigid plates with this particular PCB. Otherwise, I end up getting this left side of the board looking like it's not lining up quite right, and then the escape key is scraping, not just like touching, but it's like straight up digging into the top case. So that's not really a great time for me right now. So I had to move back over to the aluminum plate. I'm actually enjoying it quite a lot. Quite a lot. There's actually no foam in that keyboard either. So that's another first for me. I wasn't expecting to like that build without without foam. These are my favorite switch, but I gotta put you on pause. World Cup final and overtime. We'll come back and watch the whole stream. Good luck, good luck. Yeah, especially knowing the way boards go with you typically, yeah. I'm definitely gonna need luck. So, in case y'all haven't figured it out, this build is for Brian Stroh over at BPS Customs. I do commission builds for him. When he either doesn't have the time or doesn't have the capacity to do this himself, he ships the stuff out to me. I charge a modest build fee. I put everything together and get it dialed in to the extent that the supplied parts allowed me to. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Again, this is a Tiger Lite, only it's not blue like the one I built for myself. It is very purple. Like exceptionally purple. Yeah, it's almost got like some blue coming through on it. It's really nice. I am a huge fan of this. I actually showed this to the missus the other day when I was taking a look at everything here to make sure all the parts were still good, and even she really liked the purple they have here. So there's two different sets of stabs we have on hand today. I am going to not mess with the cherry screw-ins this time around. Instead, I'm going to give KBDFans stabilizers another shot. It's been a minute since I used them, and I have learned things since using them that would probably give me an overall better experience. So basically, this is an all KBDFans build. The caps, the board, technically the switches, although these specific ink blacks did not come from KBDFans, but they do sell them. And the stabilizers. Everything is KBDFans. So we are going to see how this all sort of comes together today. And this plastic is being all fighty and feisty. There we go. Get these opened up. Now, these are their smoked stabilizers. It's a smoked black housing and stem. Yeah, I mean, outwardly, they look like any other smoked black stabilizer. And as far as included stuff goes, they've got adhesive washers, which is nice to see. How many 2Us do you have in this kit? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 2U wires. So you're able to do basically whatever keyboard build you want, as well as a 6.25 and 7U wire, all of your fasteners, and then you've got 3M switch pads if you want to put these underneath the stabilizer, or stabilizer pads rather. So you can put these underneath the stabilizer and it sort of like dulls out the stem when it bottoms out. But we are not going to use those today. Instead, we are going to use everything else for this kit. So I'm going to set aside the things I am not using in the case. And this board does come with a really nice case, by the way. Really nice case. Really nice cable, too. We are going to need these. I am using tape mod. I am not using PE foam, and we are going to use the case foam and the plate foam. We're not using PE foam for this build because these ink blacks already have a deep enough acoustic profile to them that I want to sort of brighten them up a little bit more, especially how we're going to be building this board today. We are going to actually be using the case foam that's supplied with this, as well as the tape foam, because I want the switches to be brighter, but I want the case itself, the build itself, to sound as full as possible. I think that's going to give us the desired effect today. Plus, it's another way to take a look at how this thing is built. All right. The foams can be a little tricky to get out of the bag at first, but not too bad that time. Very ample foam for the plate foam. This is probably one of my favorite pre-cut plate foam sheets I've worked with in a while. Okay, we got that. Next we got case foam. And if we decide we don't like any of this, we can always just remove it. The case foam is pretty insubstantial. There's not really like a ton going on with it. It's just enough to cover underneath where the switches are located. So not overly thick, shouldn't do much to impact the flex of the case. If anything, our tape mod we're going to be putting on is going to impact things more. But since this is a 1.2 millimeter PCB, I don't want this to be over flexy. It's already going to be enough of a pain to put together because of the 1.2 millimeter PCB. Now, one thing to point out with the sleeve that the PCB and the plate are in, there is an open slit on the side. You just need to pull it out. You don't need to be a Cro-Magnon like I was and rip open the sleeve. So you can actually preserve it for later on if you want to break this down and then resell it. It's easier for you to flip when you can package it like that. But yep. Polycarb plate is the only plate option we have for this board, so that's what we're going to use. Get the sleeve out of the way. We are again using the tape mod just because it's fun, and again we want to sort of brighten up these these ink black V2s we're using. And then we got our PCB. Again, this is a 1.2 millimeter flex cut PCB. So you are going to want to be mindful of making sure you use the stabilizer shims that come with this board if you're using a standard stabilizer. 1.2 mil thick PCBs require either that shim or a stabilizer with hook ends that are meant for this. That less than half a millimeter thickness difference does make a difference with this board, absolutely. So, all our parts there. We can set the PCB aside just for a second while I get all of this out of the way so we can take a quick look at the caps we're working with today. So, we are working with PBTFans Purpolch keycaps. This is their take on the Dolch colorway while leaning into purple as a very specific color. So the base cap set, looking kind of like this, really, really like Purpolch. Incredibly pretty cap set. We've also got the rest of the base kit down here. And it does come with this case, incidentally. This is a really nice stock package. They don't stay super neat in the bottom layer, but it's because there's just like a bunch of random caps, so I wouldn't have expected that anyway. But you do get some purple accent caps in here for escape and enter with the base kit. If you want to play around with that, we may do that later. I did also already open these to take a look at them, and all of our stabilized caps here are looking fantastic. They all appear to be really, really straight. So if anything is wrong with this build, it's probably the stabilizer itself or the caps, not these caps. Or the stabilizer or the switch, rather, not the caps. Really well-made set, especially considering the price. The price is really good on these. All right, cool. Let's get to building. So, I need my protective surface down that I don't really care too much about. I'm also going to be trying a new lube brush today. I picked it up yesterday while we were at Michael's, and I want to give it a shot because it has a unique bristle shape to it. So this is a filbert style #2 paintbrush. I like that it has a broad tip, but it's narrow. Like it's got an edge to it, so it's easier for me to use this to work with. I'm really bad at gauging where my hand should be with this stuff, by the way. I'm sorry. I like that it has like a skinny edge to it, so if I'm doing something like lubing stem rails, it's a lot easier for me to get in there accurately and make sure I'm evenly coating all those surfaces. But it's also very broad, so in general, this should help me out with most operations that I'll have here. So let's get to getting some stabilizers tuned. Any of y'all got any plans for the rest of the weekend? Because I surely don't. I am, like I said earlier, I'm just going to be cleaning up the office, basically. It's wrecked in here, and I want to have this place. I need to get it back to clean again. But usually when my office gets like this, it's a sign that I'm just incredibly distracted and busy in life, because I try to keep up on it as best I can. All right, so the design of the stems here is nothing super interesting to write home about, other than that it has rounded corners on it, as opposed to sort of like the harder edges that are on something like a cherry screw-in. Even the stabilizer housing has sort of rounded corners to it. And that said, I wonder, where did it go? Where did it go? I'll have to check later. Oh, it's right here. This is actually a really good opportunity for me to test something with these stabilizer housings. All right, so what'd it do? So, interesting to note, KBDFans stabilizers will fit original GMMK Pro plates. At least it will fit the polycarbonate plate. I can't speak for how well this might fit the aluminum or brass plates, but it fit into the polycarbonate plate without warping the polycarb. So that's a good sign at least. I would have to take a more formal measurement of the width with something other than this tape measure, because this doesn't really accurately measure what I'm trying to measure here. Yeah, you can't get enough resolution with it. But these might be 6.25 mil wide housings instead of the 6.5s. So that's good. Okay, so for this board, we need 4 of the 2Us. We can put the rest of these back in the bag. Take out those, put those back in. We need the 7U wire for this build. Oh, the 7U looks gnarly on the leg. Like there's a dent in the leg. Interesting. I may have to keep an eye out on this particular bar. Not encouraging to see surface blemishes in my stabilizer wires. All right, get the baggies back in there for now. There we go. All right. And we are going to go with XHT BDZ on the wires, mainly because I am running low on 205 and I have the rest of this plus a whole nother container of XHT BDZ, and I need to make all of my lube last. So at least until I have enough money in my account that I can justify grabbing some more lube. It is often helpful to have it to build keyboards, at least if I want them to be of any kind of decent quality. That's a little too much. Basically what I'm doing here is I'm just pulling the stem through the housing and then just lubing it after I pull it through and then setting it back down. There's no yeah, I like how this brush handles lube coverage. Makes this process a bit less painful. Cool. I will have to get another brush for... I will have to get another brush for the XHT though. That stuff is stupid thick. Dummy thick is the term. Oh, it's also worth mentioning this brush is designed for acrylic paints. So that's another thing that I was looking at. I was actually looking for a brush that was that had bristles meant for oil paints, oil-based paints. But I went with this acrylic one instead because it was the only one that I could find with the right shape I was looking for. So that's going to be something else for me to consider with how this brush performs long term. But other than work stuff, we've basically just been kind of hunkering down, if you will, and getting cozy with winter having set in and it being the holiday season, and yeah, just kind of chilling around the house. You know, especially with funds being tight like they are, we don't want to go too overboard and run the risk of running out of a surplus in the event shit really hits the fan with us. But we're getting there. Definitely getting there. A dab'll do ya. A dab'll do ya. Yeah, this is already my favorite lube brush. This goes by much faster with this thing. It sucks that it's so much more expensive than a typical lube brush, but the way I see it, I would rather have paid a little bit more for the right tool that's going to last longer than pay less for a tool that I'm just going to end up replacing every month or two. Like, I don't know. I also can't speak to long-term effectiveness of these bristles, so that's why I got it, to see if it's even actually worth it in the first place. But so far, so good. So far, so good. Now, admittedly, my last experience with these Dybook stabilizers, that's what they were called when they were first launched. I'm not sure if KBDFans is still calling them that. I did not have a great experience with them, and I don't actually know now what the culprit was, because I have since learned there are a number of things that could have been wrong with the stabs, or nothing could have been wrong with them, and it could have been something else entirely. So I think I might revisit my set. I still have them, I just haven't bothered to clean off the lube from the last time I used them. Good there. All right. 1, 2 more stabilizers worth. Those. Set this down for a second. Just sort of going through mise en place, if you will. I want to make sure I don't lose any of these parts, because they're not mine. And you want to be careful with things that are not yours. Okay. Those are now out of the way. Get another one going. Another one. That'll do ya. A little bit more. It's getting a little heavy with the lube. There we go. Man, this brush grabs lube like crazy. And it does an insane job of spreading it. But because it grabs so much lube, you kind of have to pay a little bit more attention to how much you get that first time through to make sure you're not kind of overdoing it. Could be easy to do with this brush. And you notice what I'm doing when I apply the lube the first time. I'm just like dabbing the face of the stabilizer stem and just kind of brushing that over until it looks even, and then moving to the next side and so on until we're done. That makes sure, combined with not lubing all the way down to the bottom of the stem, because some of this is going to migrate when you're done with it. It helps make sure you're not going too far overboard with anything. Because eventually what's going to happen is whatever surface you're brushing lube onto, I'm actually pretty confident with the amount I've still got on this brush. Yeah. Yeah, see, this brush grabs so much lube, I didn't even have to go in for another dab to do this stabilizer stem for the most part. I'm going to grab a little bit more, but for the most part, it was already all there. Again, always better to add less now and add more later than to add more now and need to take it away later, because that's annoying. That just creates more work than is needed on your end. And after this, we can move on to the wires. Cool. All those are done. Be right back with my XHT BDZ lube brush. Cool. Check the wire for 7U. It's a little off. Not bad though. All right, we're looking good. Cool. Just a little tiny tweak was all that was needed. A little and tiny one. All right, now move the caps out of the way. Unplug the JST and daughter board. There we go. That in place. I'm also going to need, see, yeah. Interesting. Interesting. This board came with white shims. My stabilizer shims are black with mine. Fascinating. Oh yeah, I forgot. You have to cut these off with a thing because the plastic is fragile enough. Yeah, or FR4, I should say. Yeah, let me get some side cutters so I can address those. I forgot that's how they ship. Alright, so basically what these are is the 0.4 millimeter difference of the PCB to allow you to hook in a normal style stabilizer. They're very thin, but they all come together in a single sheet of FR4. So what you have to end up doing with these is taking some like side cutters like these and very carefully clipping them apart. And I emphasis on careful. If you are not careful with these, you may end up irrevocably damaging them to the point that they're not going to perform their intended function. So just make sure you're lining everything up right and that you're not using a ton of unnecessary force, and you should be fine. Doesn't take a whole lot of force to get these to snap off. But sometimes it does. There we go. Gradual, very gradual force is how I'm doing this so carefully. And even then, sometimes it's just going to do like that and just sort of go flying. So be prepared to chase these shims down. And these right here are basically the entirety of the reason I don't like 1.2 millimeter thick PCBs. Because most stabilizers require you to use these. The only ones that don't are the ones that are specifically made for 1.2 millimeter thick PCBs. And to my knowledge, only TX stabilizers has a model of stab that is designed specifically for 1.2 millimeter PCBs. So if you get those, then you don't have to bother with these shims. I can't remember if there's any other brands that have stabilizers that are made specifically for 1.2 millimeter PCBs, though. Like, I genuinely can't remember. And that might have actually been the problem with the IKI-68. Because if I recall, IKI-68 has 1.2 millimeter PCB. And when I was building that board, I did not have shims for the stabilizers. So to that end, there wasn't really anything I could do about it other than what I ended up having to do. And incidentally, we don't need all of these shims for this build. There are actually 2 extras they give you, which is nice, just in case something happens with a couple of them, which is very possible if you're just kind of doing this in a hurry and not paying attention to what you're doing. It is possible to to irrevocably damage some of these, but we need all but 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, all but 2. Okay, those go back in here, and then back in the case and one of its many pouches. Also going to set this stuff back in here with the stabilizers, because we don't need the washers for the back of this PCB. Anywhere the stabilizers are going, there's no surface mount devices that we would need to worry about having anything short on it. So I don't think we're going to use them. Yeah, I think we're going to just leave them as is. There's not even any traces that are any closer than maybe like a little more than a millimeter away, but that's still plenty of room. Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. This is fine. Everything's fine. All right, screwdriver. Get this here. All right, BDZ on the wire. Especially with BDZ, a little goes a long way. You basically just want to coat this to the point that you can only just not make out the full color of the metal underneath. And then tune from there with 205 grade 0. Okay. One leg done. Actually, these batches of XHT BDZ were from when it first hit the market. That's how long it's been since I've used this stuff. It's not that it's bad lube. I just found myself gravitating towards 205 grade 0 for most of my boards. I was more consistent with it at the time, but there's no reason for me to not start getting better with this stuff. And I've got the hang of it again. After I put together that GMMK Pro with the Flex kit, I very quickly got the hang of it again. All right, cool. First stabilizer done. Let's get these hooked in. And then clip into place. And then we do it again, the other side. You always want to be careful to make sure that everything is going in the right way and that it's going to be oriented the right way when everything is clipped in. Otherwise, you're going to have a giggle, mate. Goes in there. Get these fasteners out so I can start. Man, viewers are dropping like flies this morning. We are not feeling like watching keyboards today, huh? I can't say I blame you. Can't say I blame you. All right, so before we commit to screwing these down, I'll make sure I get the shims in place, which basically hook in underneath the stabilizer tabs or for the housing, like that. So if you set these anywhere else, you can technically still assemble the keyboard and get everything built, but it's still not going to operate correctly. So this is the way to do it. Oh, these fasteners are fighting me this morning. These are Gatoron hot swap sockets, by the way. In case you were wondering, not Kale, definitely Gatoron. First one's in place. Second fastener. Look at that, magnetic fasteners. It's almost like it's a quality of life feature that every fastener for every keyboard should have. Ask me why I'm frustrated about that. All right. And with that, our 7U is in place. Let me do a quick test of this, and then I'll move on to the other stabs. Okay, carefully support it, and that one pin is really fighting me. There we go. Okay. Get Purpolch back out. Get some spacebar testage going. I might need to do a little bit more tuning on it, but that's not bad. Yeah, I'm going to have to do a little bit of tuning, but it's not the wire. Yeah, it's not from like wire warping or anything like that. I just got to get some squirts of 205 in there. All right, cool. And I will test the rest of the stabilizers after the build's done. Cool. All right. Yeah, I just had to get a little bit more BDZ inside where the wire's meeting the stem, because what happens is, like with every lube, especially with the really thick stuff like XHT, the process of getting everything sort of set up inside the stabilizer, lube's going to shift around. It's going to scrape off, and once it scrapes off, you just run the risk of having that ticking going on again. I did something a little different this time. I did not lube the inside of the stem with BDZ before going in, and that was the end result. So I'm going to try putting a little bit down on the inside of these wires before I go full send. There we go. Kind of an awkward way to do this. I probably should have done this before I set the stems inside the housings, but whatevs. There we go. Okay. Those two covered. Go back over here and cover the wire proper. So, question then, how would you all feel about me moving all of my streams over to Twitch? Instead of doing this Sunday on YouTube and every other day on Twitch thing, how would you feel about me just doing everything on Twitch? Because I do have to admit that would probably be a little bit easier for me all around. It's less fumbling about, it's more consistent discoverability. Especially for the makers and crafters channel. But I don't know, sometimes over here the streaming hits different. Guess it just sort of depends on the day or the project I'm working on or whatever. But what do you think? I am interested to hear what you all have to say. In your home. Are you too good for your home? Thank you. Gah. Pain. Next leg. Doesn't matter to me. Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling lately like, good morning, by the way. I'm just kind of feeling like just doing one or just doing the other makes the most sense. And to a certain extent, I might have better initial discoverability on YouTube just because of my subscriber base, but as we can clearly see from the no views that we have going right now, it doesn't necessarily seem like YouTube hits quite right with this. I feel like Twitch might have more of a community that's more interested in this kind of content. Maybe I just keep the YouTube channel for when I do videos. Because this whole thing was an experiment in the first place. I didn't know exactly how this was all going to turn out. And the more I do this, the more I'm liking the interactions on Twitch over on YouTube, and the entire sort of process in general. There's also just a lot more tools for me to use on the Twitch side of things. YouTube doesn't really have that fleshed out here just yet. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right. These get a little obnoxious when they're next to the hot swap sockets. So there is one thing to note with these shims. Unfortunately, the way this PCB is set up, some of the shims end up kind of being uncomfortably close to SMDs. That's probably my only major complaint with the design of this board, and why I just straight up don't like 1.2 millimeter PCBs. Creating this need for an additional like gasket layer of any kind just to make a part work that otherwise already has enough problems working in the first place, that doesn't seem like a great idea to me. And yeah, I'm just really not comfortable with how close this shim is to this SMD right here. Like I almost have a feeling that at some point someone's gonna pop that thing off because tolerances are like exactly enough off, and they're gonna be wondering why their board's not working. Like for this, just make it a 1.6 millimeter thick PCB so we don't have to mess with these shims. But if you're not building the board, you're paying someone else to do it, I guess that doesn't really matter. But it is something to note. Some of these shims will end up sitting particularly close to SMDs on the back of the PCB. So just be mindful of it, and you should be fine. There. There. Okay. Oh, I got that just like all over the outside. Oh, I knew I was gonna want to keep these Q-tips nearby. Do I have one here? No. I gotta get one from the box. Alrighty. Got a little bit of XHT-BDZ on the outside of the stem, but that's okay. Take a little Q-tip. I'll get most of it off, and then I can take my other lube brush and retouch with some 205 right there, because I definitely rubbed some of it off. There we go. That's done. Next wire. I'm actually kind of hoping that I show up on Monday to that 10th gig and they go, hey, so we don't really need you for the rest of the project. Just go home. Happy holidays. if I'm being honest. I mean, I'm gonna stick it out. I'm gonna do the whole contract if that's what they need me for. But I'm kind of hoping they go, yeah, you're kind of slow at this. Go. Because that kind of like cold calling work, I am admittedly kind of slow with. I need to be able to make sure that I'm doing what I'm doing correctly the first time. And the way you have to run through those calls and the way most people don't take good notes just really, really frustrates me. All right. Feel a little poke coming through on you. Not sure why that was giving me a hard time, but we did it. Sucks I'm not seeing any of the homies here right now. But it's Sunday morning. I understand. Can't say I'd want to be here either. But this was the time I had to do this, so that's when I'm doing it. And y'all can either watch or not. No biggie. All right, cool. And that one went in just fine. Cool. All right. Next set of shims. Set that down. There we go. Yeah, basically all I'm doing to get these shims lined up is making sure that the end that slips underneath the hook for the stabilizer housing is getting under there. Once it's under that hook, you know you're good. Because that's the main point where you have to make up the difference in PCB thickness. But it is worth noting, it is possible to install these shims and not have it lined up correctly. So double check and make sure that all of your shims are lined up correctly before you commit to just leaving them and moving on. Because if they're not done up right, what'll happen is the board will still work, but there will be a strange sort of rattle that comes from your stabilizers that you are incapable of curing. And it will frustrate you, and you won't understand why until you remember that you didn't use your stabilizer shims. And then you have to basically take the board apart to get to them again so that you can install them. Okay. I'm actually going to loosen these because I want to straighten out the housings a little bit more. All right, cool. Excellent. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're keyboard builders. Incidentally, if any of you didn't catch it, Hive Social is back up and running. It is a much snappier and more responsive experience than it was when I first made my account. A little weird that the text always appears to be bold-faced. It's a little odd to read, but other than that, everything seems to be kosherized with the platform. So you should see me posting there again more often. I, of course, will be updating everyone there with everything that's gone on since Hive went down, because it was down for a minute, and I'm pretty positive there's still a bunch of folks out there that don't know that Hive is back up and running. Let's set that there for a second. Forgot to do the thing. Forgot to do the thing to the thing with the thing. Flip that over and there we go. And another dab on the inside here. Sick. Pull that through a little bit there. Now for this operation and this lube, I actually do prefer the more slender typical lube brushes. It's this is one of those lubes where you want to be sure you're only getting it on hey Shogun, how's it going? Good to see you. I'm watching, just eating breakfast. Hey, no worries, no worries. That's what we're all here to do, Tenor. Just kind of chill out, watch keyboards get built, and just sort of ease into the day, you know. I think what's weird for me, and this is a me thing, it's not a you thing or anything like that, is I'm used to talking a lot on Twitch, because that's just how most streams on that platform end up working, unless it's specifically themed to not involve voice. Like I was actually watching a stream one night. It was DGen hours, and I was just watching an artist in one of the communities I follow doing their stream, and there was no actual speaking being done by anything other than text-to-speech. And the streamer was only using like sort of like generic hand signs or expressions to sort of like play along with what was being said. And then the rest of the chat was similarly only communicating, unless it was through a text-to-speech thing, they were only communicating with emotes. It was the most interesting interaction I have ever seen go down, but I was kind of having fun with it too. I got in the middle of it, so I was like, I only sort of know what's going on. but it was really cool to watch that. Just see people have entire conversations based on nothing but emojis and channel emotes from other parts of the community. It was good times. So, Shogun, in case you missed the title for this stream, we are building a purple KBDFans Tiger Lite with PBTFans Purpolch keycaps. So think Dolch colorway, only leaning into purple as the accent color. And we are using Gatoron Ink Black V2s. Oh, sick. I discovered I installed one of these stems backwards. That is a good catch. That would have been really obnoxious to deal with if I hadn't caught that. All right. Stabilizer set up. A little sloppy, but we got there in the end. And there's something about KBDFans keyboard, like PCBs, where the stabilizers, for some reason, for enter and right shift, always feel uncomfortably close to me. I don't know why. They just seem closer on this board than on other boards. But to be fair, that's also a result of me not building a lot of boards for myself that have a stabilizer requirement for a right shift. Normally, I don't even use right shift. I just use left shift, and right shift is just there as something to look and sound pretty. All right, am I? No, not good with that one. Gonna poke it through a little bit more. And I hate shims. There we go. Sometimes a good set of needle nose tweezers is a really good call to have on hand. Sounds like you're making a beast. Yeah, it's kind of an insane keyboard. At least that's the hope. Visually, it should all come together really well, like just black and purple for days with everything. And this is a client build for BPS Customs. Because he is a man who, when he goes into a hobby, he goes into a hobby and goes full send with everything. He he actually forgot he bought this board until he was going through his shit one day. He messaged me, he's like, hey, so I don't remember buying this and I don't have the time to build it. Let me send this one over to you. That and there are certain aspects of this hobby that have become something of a frustration for him. And what I'm working on right now, stabilizers, is one of them. I've gone through that story before where he sent me a bunch of boards that I needed to take a look at and fix. But the fact remains that there are big consistency issues throughout this industry between everything. And the thing that sucks about it is that the tolerance issues that a lot of these parts experience, they sort of collude to make a universally bad experience, but it's entirely dependent on how lucky or unlucky you got with how well certain parts do or don't work together. So it's one of those things where you're spending all of this money on this keyboard, right? Like these stabilizers, I believe, are around $15, $20. The keyboard bare bones is $130, so we're looking at about $150 just for the keyboard, not including the switches or the caps. The caps, I believe, were around $99 for the base kit, so that's another $100, so we're looking at $250. Then we're talking pre-lubed ink black V2s. These have got to be over $1 a switch each, and we're talking about 87 switches on this board. So you're talking like a $300-something keyboard, and there is every possibility that I may run into a combination of parts here that doesn't work, that I cannot correct fully any stabilizer ticking or abnormalities. I'm hopeful that's not the case because everything here is KBDFans except for the switches. So I am at least cautiously optimistic that this should all come together really well. But the fact that I even have to worry about that in the first place with this hobby is concerning. You know, you shouldn't have to worry about whether or not the quality of your product is going to get influenced by something like dumb luck. That just doesn't strike me as something that's sustainable, and it ultimately stands to push people away from the hobby. Even if it's only for a little while, it's frustrating enough that I could definitely see someone saying, screw this, my boards always turn out like ass. I don't know how y'all are getting these boards to turn out like they are, but I can't make it happen no matter what I do. And that's understandably frustrating, because something like this shouldn't be stressful. It shouldn't carry that kind of worry. You should just be able to go into a keyboard build and just know that as long as you're following certain steps, that the board's going to turn out at the very least fine. Even if it's not like jaw-droppingly great, it'll still turn out fine, and there won't be any major glaring concerns. But when you spend all this money to put a board together and it sounds all rattly and ticky and shit, that's not a great experience for anyone, and it feels really bad, and it perpetuates this idea that custom keyboards are a waste of money. Which, yes, they are. Don't get that twisted. They are absolutely a waste of money. But to suggest that there's no point to them, or to suggest that it's a hobby not worth getting into, part of that comes from the hobby itself and the fact that these parts are so wildly inconsistent. I mean, even TX stabilizers, now that they're on V3, I've been hearing isolated reports of TX stabs not working great with keyboards, which has me a little worried about the TX long pole stabs I plan on using for my EVGA build. That doesn't fill me with the warm and fuzzies, and especially as much as that build will end up costing after all is said and done, I would be really pissed if they ended up not doing the trick. So it's a frustration that I share with folks in this hobby, even if they're just casual enthusiasts in the space, which is fine. Okay, some of these stabilizers I'm a little concerned about how the wire's fitting in. Not liking that. Like, some of the stems, it feels like the wire, when I try to insert it into the stem, there's like a little piece of plastic they're snagging on. And that's not a great sign. Hopefully, the fact that we used BDZ on these means that we have a bit more latitude in getting rid of undesirable noises, but that would suck if these ended up not doing the trick. If they don't, I'll just end up switching over to the cherry stabilizers that came with this. I will have to clip the legs on those, and of course relube them, but that is another option. And cherry stabilizers are in general fine. I never have any glaring issues with them. If I do, it's usually something else in the build that's causing the issue, not the stabilizers themselves. Wires are usually pretty straight. Fitment in the stabilizer housing is pretty good for both the stem and the wire. Last one. Hopefully this is the home stretch for stabilizers and I don't have to worry about these again other than just a little bit of spot tuning, which I suspect most of the rest of them will need, just like the spacebar did, but at least the spacebar we got there pretty quickly. So I'm still cautiously optimistic, but I'm not liking how some of these wires fit fit into the stabilizer stems. Let's make sure that shim is, yeah, that shim is where it needs to be. One more, and then we can move on to testing the stabs and making sure they work. Correctly, anyway. See, that's the thing. Stabilizers will typically always at least work. They may sound like ass, but they'll work. Other stabilizers, if they're pre-lubed, you may find that they don't work that great, especially after the experience I had with an NK87 aluminum edition case. I do not like factory lubed switches, or stabilizers rather. Love factory lubed switches. Stabilizers though, I honestly would rather tune those myself. I would rather not have to clean up someone else's botch job and make it an even more annoying process for me than it absolutely needs to be. So let's make sure I don't have any stuff on my hands proper. I also gotta hydrate. Remember to hydrate, everyone. I don't have emotes like that on YouTube or point redeems or anything like that. So yeah, I will just remind you all to hydrate. All right, how do I want to test these? Let's get some switches. Okay. That there. And we can get away with doing this without the plate this time around because we're using 5-pin switches. So the switch is a little bit more stable in the socket than it otherwise would have been had we been using only a 3-pin switch. Okay. Need a little bit of touch up in the right side. I might as well tune up the left side too. I'm also going to have to reload my syringe for the others. So this is how I go about doing this bit of it, right? This syringe is the same one I've been using for several boards now, and all I do is just reload it with 205 grade 0 as it runs out. I'll just scoop up a bunch on a brush, get it down into the opening, and then I'll take the brush and I'll sort of push the lube down a little bit more and rotate around through the syringe barrel to make sure I'm getting as much of it sort of pushed down as possible. And I'll repeat that a few times until I've got a decent amount in the syringe, because I don't want to do this very often. That should do us for now. Okay. The excess off the sides there. And then you just reinsert the plunger. And there we go. We have another 1/10 of a milliliter of lube to work with. Okay. So we're good with left shift. Well, let me double check to make sure we're good with left shift. Morning, Joe. Good to see you, buddy. Man, this is going to sound good. I have that feeling. Okay. A little bit of tuning there. Knew that was going to happen. Definitely needed on both sides. And I'm only injecting a very small amount of lube. I'm not overdoing this. Now, in this case, mixing 205 grade 0 with the XHT BDZ isn't actually a problem. In fact, it's kind of a good thing. 205 migrates enough along surfaces that it will not only fill in gaps that the XHT BDZ isn't filling because it may have gotten scraped off or moved around when we assembled this, but because it's mixing with the XHT, it's going to be thicker and more tacky than it would have been normally, so it's less likely to continue to migrate as you use the keyboard. A little bit of a tick coming from the right side of this. Let's see where that's coming from. Yeah, right side's not feeling so hot on that one. I may need to redo that stabilizer a little bit. Might need to redo it. Because it looks like it's well lubed inside. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of lube in there. There should be no reason for it to be ticking. We'll try changing switches. Maybe it's just something about that switch is making it tick. Yep. It was the switch. Always try changing switches first. Least intrusive to most intrusive diagnostic process. It applies here. It matters. Because I don't want to have to take apart a stabilizer if I can at all help it. And if it means I can try just changing a switch instead, I'm going to do that. Now, obviously, this is a bit more tricky if you're dealing with a soldered build. But at this point, you should still not have soldered any switches in place, so you should still be fine to change out switches to do testing like this. Okay, enter's just perfect. All right. Off. Thank you. All right, enter is perfect. And I am keeping these switches with these sockets because I know they work well. All right, now let's test out backspace, and then we will be good to finally start properly assembling this board. Touch up this one a little bit, and then I think we're good to go. do the other side too. You can sort of get away with only retuning one side or the other of a stabilizer, but for a first round of tuning, I prefer personally to do both stems at the same time. And then if there's still ticking coming from one side, then I can focus on one side or the other and sort of go from there, see how we're doing with things. Oh no. That off. All right, let's try a different switch. Could be the switch. It's causing us a problem. We'll pull from a little deeper down. Pull this one. Let's see if this does the trick. If not, then I have some other considerations to make. Yeah, about as good as we're going to get with that one. All right. Feeling good. Feeling good about this. All right, so I'm going to leave that there. That one there. That one there. This one, ooh. That one got away from me. So that one right there, and then I want to make sure I get one that works right with the space bar, and we're good to go. You got to be careful when you're pulling these caps like this from a 1.2 millimeter PCB. Another reason I don't like 1.2 millimeter PCBs, the whole thing is just way more fragile than it needs to be. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get this thing actually built. All right. Set this up here for now. Let's start off, no fasteners in there, okay. Get the top case off and we'll get the daughter board and JST connector set up. Our handy dandy torque stick. Set that there. These are the case fasteners. You can close up the lube because we're done with that. Just get excess off there. You can tell I just really don't care about whether or not this surface gets dirty. That's what it's here for. It's here to get dirty so my desk mat doesn't have to. All right, and our test run with this brush, again, this is a Filbert #2 brush. Yeah, I like this for lubing. I will definitely stick to using that for the next little bit. Matt Smith TARDIS color, yeah, yeah, kinda. these come out of the bag. There. All right. Oh, wait, I'm doing it wrong. This has to go upside down, like that. There we go, Mike. That's how you install it. Otherwise, they can't access the USB-C port. And that's not good. Make sure that's, yep, lined up perfectly. All right, that's installed. I will need those momentarily, and I will need these at the end. Set those there for now, set that there for now. The rest of these fasteners can go back in this baggie. These caps need to go over here so they don't get lost or worse. That can be garbage. Okay, next step, tape mod. Alrighty. Now what's nice about this, again, this is a, it's all just one solid piece of tape. So you're not dealing with multiple strands in a more time-intensive process than it needs to be. Oh, it curled up on itself. Damn it. I was hoping that wouldn't happen. Oh, well, this is fine. This is fine. Everything is fine. Gotta get this stuck down before, okay. Get the case out of the way. Getting ahead of myself. Ugh. Should not have done it like this. What have I done? Okay, cool. Okay. Tape mod down. All right, and then we start just working our way across, poking through where the JST connector plugs into the motherboard. You got to make sure that's exposed. Also really wish, okay, so what I'm gonna do before I go and put the rest of this together, I'm actually gonna cut out the sections of the tape mod that are around the LEDs. That way Brian can use the RGB lighting and not have to worry about the heat from the LEDs causing the tape mod to peel away. Especially after the fiasco I just had with trying to get it off its adhesive backing in the first place. All right, we're getting there. I wish there was a way to do this tape mod before you went and did your stabilizers, but because there's only a cutout for the JST connector, I have to wait until after I have the stabilizers tuned and installed, which makes this slightly annoying. Cool. Tape mod is on, and now I'm going to go around with these little guys. I'm going to cut out the tape around the LEDs. It's going to take me a minute to do this, but I would rather the LEDs be exposed and not impacting the tape mod's ability to stick to the board. And thankfully there aren't a ton of these LEDs for me to do this with. Okay, I want to be careful doing this. I don't want to actually damage the SMDs. There we go. One. Yeah, if anyone from KBDFans ever happens to come across this, not a Twitch stream, but 100, don't forget to hydrate. Yeah, it's I'm working on it. I try to remember, but yeah, don't have the emotes on YouTube. I was actually talking about this earlier. I may just go ahead and move all of my streams over to Twitch. For this kind of thing, I seem to have pretty decent discoverability over there. And I kind of feel like I want to keep YouTube focused on shorts and videos when I have the time for it. Because streaming here is cool and all, but I'm not finding that I have the same kind of discoverability and reach here that I do on Twitch. Maybe I'm reading the tea leaves wrong. Or it is also very likely it's all to do with my time slot. I can't imagine there are a lot of people out there that would intentionally wake up this early for something even like a keyboard stream, especially when most of those degens are up until all hours of the night anyway. But trying to hit a different audience. I just don't know if this is it, if you will. I'm basically just perforating the tape mod around the LEDs. So all that time we otherwise would have saved by having this single sheet tape mod is now being eaten up by the fact that I don't want the tape to peel away from the PCB because of the heat from the LEDs for the underglow softening the adhesive. Because that exact thing happened with my board, and I am too lazy to have gone and corrected it just yet. So I just run the board with the LEDs off, which is fine. Underglow is one of those things I can sort of take it or leave it. I don't necessarily need to have RGB underglow. Per key lighting is kind of nice because I like the glow it gives my main alpha cluster, especially if I'm typing in like a lower light setting, like if I'm just gaming in the evening or whatever. I like having that backlight there. But underglow, I can take it or leave it. If it's there, cool. You know, like the ID80 crystal, I turn on the underglow, but even then, my ID80 crystal's underglow is kind of scuffed. I can't turn the lights on past 70% intensity without one of the LEDs flickering. Maybe you could post some stream highlights from Twitch in the form of shorts. Yeah, I was thinking of doing that. When I get to that point, I may do that. So I've got some other I've got some other video content I want to make as well. But I also have some writing to do. This coming week, I'm hoping to get to work on my next article for Drop, detailing some best practices, in like general best practices when building a custom mechanical keyboard. And the other article we have up there right now on picking your first board has gotten quite a few views and all upvotes so far. I'm absolutely expecting that someone is going to try shitting on it at some point, because that's how these things go. But yeah, it's gotten a lot of positive response so far. I've seen several folks in my my notifications over there bookmarking the article to reference for later. So that's always encouraging. Last I checked, it had gotten over 1,200 views, which for a typed article these days is saying something. Never mind the fact that Drop actually has the social media reach to make articles like that have more eyes on it anyway. But I thought that was kind of cool. All right. I think I'm just going to do this top row, and then I'll pause here and go back to this off camera to finish it, because I don't want to take up too much time today, but we'll see how time goes with this. I'm going along at a decent pace. I just don't want this stream to last too much longer. If I can help it. Unless y'all are comfy, in which case we'll rage. One more along the top here. Oops. One's down. That didn't take us a terribly long amount of time, but I am going to finish the rest of these off stream. I just wanted to have a couple of these poking through, just so you could sort of get the gist of what it is I'm doing. And so you can sort of see just how many LEDs there are back here. Just on this top row, we've got 8 LEDs, 16, 18, 20, 21, 20. So there's about 21 or 22 underglow LEDs on the back of this PCB. There is no way they are not producing an amount of heat that wouldn't cause the adhesive to soften and fall back. So that's definitely something I would like to see improved with this tape mod, is cutouts for the LEDs. I want to see that. And that's just a matter of getting the tooling set up for this, because they already have in production with this a cutout for where the JST connector plugs in. So it would be then a question of adding those same cutouts for the LEDs, because I definitely think this board, the tape mod for it, needs that. All right. Plate foam down. Get the plate. Set that in place. Actually, before I do that, let me get my stabilized caps in the plate for alignment purposes. Cool. And hopefully I didn't bend any pins, but I'll find out. That's the thing that sucks about having a tape mod on your PCB is you can't flip it around to see the hot swap sockets to see that the pins are coming through on both sides. So you're kind of trusting in the heart of the cards, if you will. Yeah, it's a little sweaty. Also, interesting, this PCB is technically compatible with a or the plate rather, is technically compatible with a 6.25U spacebar. But they do not give you enough, enough sockets to have that flexibility. And I feel like that was kind of a missed opportunity with this board, especially with them not having LEDs per key. It would have been very easy for them to just add a couple of extra hot swap sockets here, just to give us that little bit of extra versatility with our build. All right, since I'm done with stabilizer stuff, I'm going to put these back in here, in with the housings. There we go. Mise en place, folks. Mise en place. Okay, don't need... No, we'll set that right there for now. Okay, let's get some switches installed. These were for the JST connector, so these can go in here for now. This can sit in here for now. Oh, need to put these back in the box with the stabilizers. That cleaned up. That can go in the garbage. Okay. Cool. Now I can get the rest of this stuff out of the way. Some of it I will need again, but I just need to get it out of the way now. So I can get rid of that. Because we're not dealing with messy stuff anymore. Oh yeah. All right. That doesn't feel great. No, it's fine. Everything's fine. There we go. These switches have some girthy pins on them, I'm noticing. And I don't mean the plastic pins, I mean the cross point contacts. Kind of girthy. I feel like this foam is maybe, there we go. Cool. There's something about inserting switches into sockets that I just enjoy. I just kind of space out with it. And sometimes forget that I have a stream where people are watching me do this. Looking really good though with these black stabilizers though. Now we went with the tape mod and not the PE foam with this build because these ink blacks are a very deep sounding switch naturally, and lubing them with 205 grade 0 just makes them smoother, of course, but it also makes them that little bit deeper. And if we were to go with PE foam in this board, it would sound kind of lifeless. Whereas the tape mod should, in theory, make the PCB and plate assembly a bit brighter acoustically. And we'll see how the case foam impacts things as well. Because my personal build, I didn't end up going with the case foam. I happen to like it as it is, but Brian's tastes are a bit different from mine. And I'm building the board for him, not for me, so. I do know he doesn't like his boards sounding overly muddy. They should have some character to them, but we don't want too much. In worst case scenario, if it turns out that it is a bit bright with the tape mod, then we can go back and add the PE foam sheet later on if we want to. And that's what's nice about boards like this, giving you all of those options out of the box. Like, you only need to use what you want to use. You don't have to use everything. You just need to use the bare minimum that's required for the board to actually function. I would imagine moments of zen happen as you're doing that. Yeah, there really are. I actually really enjoy the lubing process, even though it is very tedious and time-consuming. I still end up enjoying it, not just for switches, but for stabilizers as well. There's something about the tinkering and detail-oriented nature of that task that really vibes with me. So it's something that that's just never really, and I know it bugs a lot of enthusiasts, but for me, it's just something that's never really bugged me. The only thing that bugs me about it is that I don't have more time to do it. That's what bugs me, is that I end up always feeling just that little bit rushed when I do this, because I have a very strange perception of the passing of time, and it's really annoying. It's really annoying. I don't wish it on anyone, but it definitely impacts things. Looks like we're going to have like just enough of these to cover this build. Now we do have some other switches on hand as well, including single samples of some switches that Brian sent over. So depending on how this board comes together, we may check out one of those for the spacebar. Get it sounding and feeling good. Damn, some of these pins were bent like crazy. I'm really hoping that the rest of the switches in this board are fine. All right. Cool. All of the switches are in. Yeah. Inky. All right. Let's get some socks on this thing. All right. And these little socks are just so different from typical gasket mounting implementations. Really, this is kind of just the way this should be done if you want genuine flex out of a board. Especially after my experience with GMMK Pro and the Flex Kit. I've got thoughts on it. Definitely going to want to stay tuned for my dedicated video on it, but I guess if I had to sum it up now, it's that GMMK Pro Flex Kit is how GMMK Pro should have shipped in the first place. That's the board we should have gotten at launch. But we didn't, and that's fine. That just means people going into the board now should, in theory, have a better experience. Now, if you're a Gen 1 owner and you're happy with your board, then FlexKit is not going to, like, wow you. I also don't necessarily feel that it's a strong value for Gen 1 adopters, unless you're just looking for a very specific kind of feel for that board, and you're okay with spending a little bit more on it. If you're happy with that board, then sure, spend your money how you want. Buy the Flex Kit, assuming you're a Glorious Guild member, because that's the other thing, is it's only available to Guild members right now, and I don't care for that. All right, so I'm gonna need to put the JST cable above the case foam. Or can I? Okay, the JST is going to be a little awkward with the case foam. Let's poke it through here, actually, because that seems like the way. Yeah. Okay. Got that there. Yeah, we had 3 switches left, so that was a pack of 90. Confirmed. Plug in the JST. Hopefully I'm doing it the right way. Yes, I am. Cool. We can set this down in the case like so. Making sure the gasket socks fit inside the notches on the case. Cool. All right, top case. Now we open up the baggie of case fasteners. Oh no, I think I got some stuff on my desk. Oh no, that's always been there. That's fine. That's the sheen of Thanos' nose. A Thanos, if you will. All right, These things are not wanting to come out of this bag. Can I? There they are. Cool. These little baggies are all fighty and feisty sometimes. All right. Go. We're just going through each corner in a crosshatch pattern, just getting the fasteners tightened to bottom out by gripping the top of this tool first to twist and making sure that the threads are engaged correctly. And it's going to feel like it's giving a little bit because you're getting the you're getting those gasket socks sandwiched into their little respective notches in each half of the case. This board will let you know pretty readily if you don't have everything lined up correctly. So far, so good. Oh. That doesn't feel great at all. Is there something up with this fastener? Let's try a different fastener. Don't like the way this fastener feels. Now that I've run that through, let me back it off and see what this fastener looks like. We may be dealing with a standoff in the case that's a little moushatted up, which would be really unfortunate. Yeah, looks like we were getting some plastic in the way there, but should be fine. Oh, I see what was happening. The case was bowing out a little bit, and okay. And then the plastic was creating added friction. Cool. We learned. You learned that sometimes you just need to pinch in on the side of the case when you're running these fasteners through to make sure that that you're not getting any weird stuff going on. I am finding it interesting, though, that this case has now two openings, or two standoffs that feel kind of weird. Running fasteners through them at first. It's not stripping the fasteners or anything. It's just lining up kind of funny. But if this at least comes together like my Tiger Lite, this is still going to be a sick board. Just getting a little weird resistance there is all. But it's not from the standoff as far as I can tell. Thought I felt it strip out for a second. That would not have been great. But it didn't, so yay. All right, then you can get some keycaps on this thing. There we go. Cool. Some footsies. Let me... flip those off. I want to make sure that surface has no skin oil on it or anything. I really, really appreciate that none of the fasteners are hidden underneath any feet here. There have been a lot of keyboards I've taken a look at in the past where you have to remove the rubber feet on the bottom of the case to get to the fasteners, and good luck getting those feet back on decently again after that. It's not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's because you're using some supplementary adhesive to help out, or you just got different bump-ons entirely. But I do not like when fasteners are located underneath feet to any capacity. Especially if they're stick-on feet. Like, it's different if the case feet just sort of like notch into the bottom case. Then it's fine, but because then removing them and replacing them doesn't mean you're going to lose their ability to do their thing. That's still a pretty decently flexy board, even with the case foam installed. It's noticeably less than my board, but only because I have one and I have built it without the case foam, so I can make that observation. But for the vast majority of you out there, you probably just wouldn't notice. All right, I'll get the rest of the parts that are spares in here. Get that out of the way. Set this in here. Set that down, this. All right, cap time. You and the cap'n make it happen and stuff, I guess. Did you just pick Thanos' nose? Infinity nostrils. You know, sometimes you just got a bogey, and you gotta take care of it, you know? And Thanos is no exception. The Mad Titan has mad boogers. Moving stuff around in the case so that it all fits right, and then I can just ship everything back in this and the cap box. All right, let's get to it. Start off with our stabilized caps because we already got them out. Stupid hair from my stupid cats. Man, I'm telling you. I think we done did it with this board. I'm also very glad I didn't go with the PE foam. Oh, that's not an enter key, Mike. That's another shift. What are you doing? Yeah, really glad I didn't go with the PE foam. This board would have sounded utterly lifeless with the PE foam. But with the case foam, we're getting it we're getting the sound tight enough. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, without the PE foam and with the case foam, the sound is tight enough that it's still got some character to it, but it's noticeably deep and marbly, which is what we were going for. And there's enough rigidity in the assembly that the heavier switches here aren't going to be as fatiguing. That was something that I was actually kind of worried about going into this build with the ink blacks, is the spring for these switches is so heavy. And this board is really flexy and bouncy naturally. So I was concerned that the weight of the spring would sort of exaggerate the weight, combined with the plate would exaggerate the weight of the switch. But from what I can tell so far, feels and sounds really nice. And we'll add the accent caps later. I just want to get the standard base kit on here first. See how that looks. I really like the low-key colorway we've got going here. Of course, Brian is operating under the assumption that he will just end up going back to his mode 80 that I built up for him after he gets this back in. But I don't know. I don't know, man. This board's coming together. Yeah. Oh, you can already hear it through the through my condenser. Yeah. This is gonna be insane. Now, what I do really like about these PBTFans cases is they give you individual slots for all of the caps in the set, at least for the primary caps that you use. That's nice for keeping things nice and tidy and organized. Also, the box that that this slides into is pretty nice too. This is going to be a very different acoustic profile compared to what my board sounds like, and I'll do a side-by-side. I actually have my board just sitting off to the side, and we'll do a side-by-side of the both of these just so you can take a listen to how different they sound. My board is a much brighter acoustic profile than this one. It's also just a brighter board in general. This one having a darker colorway with these darker caps, it kind of makes more sense thematically that it would sound deeper than my board. But they're otherwise the same board. And there are certain similarities in the acoustics between the two of these because they're both using the same plate and the plate foam and the tape mod. The case foam is one of the X factors with this build. The other one being the ink black switches, which are just naturally very, very deep sounding. All right, got those. I'm going to actually pull up Purpolch. I want to see what they think each of these caps is supposed to be. Okay. That's print screen. insert, delete, home, end. Whoops, that's the wrong end. That's what she said. Heyo! Down. That's the wrong profile. This is the one I'm looking for. All right, we got there in the end. Why do I feel like that cap is just ever so slightly taller than the others? Am I doing this wrong? Is there like another page down cap that I'm just not seeing, or am I just going crazy? Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's the right one. I'm just going crazy. All right. Arrows, and then we're done. And then we can do some typing tests. All right, folks. There we have it. Our built-up keyboard. Get this back in the box, and then we'll show you all what's up. All right. Pull this up, get it back in here. There we go. Off to the side. Now that is a pretty keyboard. That right there is a great looking keyboard. Again, this is a KBDFans Tiger Lite in purple with PBTFans Purpolch keycaps. We are using ink black V2s, and we have KBDFans smoke black stabilizers installed. We're using plate foam, tape mod, case foam, no PE foam. The underside right there. Yeah, that's looking solid. All right, let's unplug that. Plug this in, and I'm just gonna make sure everything looks good on my end. Let's authorize a device. Tiger 80, connect. All right. And we're on VIA. And it changed views on me. All right. Are we still streaming? Did I accidentally hit something? All right, we look good. This is why I this is why I hate testing these on stream. Look at that. Wow. I didn't bend a single pin. Every single switch registered. Love to see it. I will leave it to Brian to configure this board. But for right now, it looks like we've got everything set up. Right now, the underglow is just on sort of RGB recirc. You can sort of see the underglow through there. You can also see that where we cut away the tape at the top, the RGB underglow is a bit brighter. So with the case foam installed in this, you're basically not going to get any underglow. You might as well just have the RGB turned off at that point. Matter of fact, before I do that, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and turn it off. There we go. Turned it off for now. And I will finish making the cutouts in the tape mod later, but for right now, let's get set up for a typing test. Oh, my janky solution is falling apart on me. What a shock. If I buy nothing else with any of the money I have gotten, it's going to be a new arm for this microphone. This is embarrassing as hell. All right. Unplug this so we don't accidentally nuke the stream or something. All right, up there. Get this plugged in. All right. Nearly there, nearly there. We are just going to, music ended up pausing on us at some point. I'd really dislike that. All right, so. It's a very good-looking board while still being unassuming. Yeah, that's kind of why so behind the scenes, Brian showed me this board, and he actually asked for my feedback on keycaps that might work well for this. The very first thing that came to mind was Purpolch. Actually, now that I'm looking at this, I think I am just going to go ahead and throw on the accent caps. Because I think that little more splash of purple will go a long way visually. But I will do that after the typing test. For right now, let's get the typing test going. So we will pause the music and switch over. Here we go. Test, test, 1, 2. All right, condenser's working. All right, mod test. Alphas. And typing. There we go. There we go. Yeah, that's. I thought I clicked over. I thought I clicked over. Sorry. Yeah, I really like the way this board sounds. It's deep without lacking character. Like, it's one of those board sounds where it's not going to get super fatiguing really quickly. And if you like the spring weight for this switch, this is a really nice experience. Yeah, just everything about this board just came together really nicely. But we want to add a little splash of color to it. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Frickin' Glarce's videos. Jesus Christ. Yeah. That splash of purple is kind of doing it for me now, not gonna lie. That extra little splash of purple on the board, that's looking good. And if Brian wants to switch it back later on, he's more than welcome to do that. But I'm gonna leave the accent caps on it, as the Lord intended. And then we'll get out my Tiger Lite, and I'll do a typing test with that so you can listen to the differences between the way these two builds came together. So we just heard the Tiger Lite that we built on stream today. This is my personal Tiger Lite. Very different vibes with both of these boards in terms of overall acoustics and appearance, but it's the same board otherwise. So as a refresher, this particular one has JWick blacks in it with no case foam, and we are using cherry purple and blue on white. Pause the music. So with my board, because we went a slightly different direction with the, yeah, like it's a very different sound between both of these boards. The other thing, so here's the breakdown of what's different and why these sound so dramatically different from one another, because just the case foam being different in this is not going to impact things that dramatically. If anything, all this has done is taken out, it's just made the board sound a little tighter. That's all the case foam is doing here. And more to the point, it's toning down on enough of the flex in the PCB that with these being heavier springs on this switch, it feels a little bit less fatiguing. Like actually, even though this spring is maybe a bit heavier than I would prefer, it's not uncomfortable, shockingly. And yeah, the ink blacks versus the JWicks, that alone is going to be a dramatic difference because the JWicks are using a full nylon housing. Inks are using an ink housing, and there is actually no other way to word that because we don't actually know what the blend of plastic is that makes ink housings, but they are unique in their composition like that, which is why if you can make a switch that uses ink housings or an iteration of the ink housing, you're going to get a really deep sounding switch out of it. The other difference is the springs in both of these switches have different rates of compression on them and different return rates. That also does impact the acoustics of the switch and the board a little bit, especially on the return stroke. Multi-stage springs and heavier springs will tend to accentuate the sound of the top housing a little bit more on your switches. So there's that. They're both using cherry profile keycaps. However, I believe PBTFans Purpolch is double shot ABS. Let me double check the specs. No, it's double shot PBT. So yes, these are double shot PBT. These are die sub PBT. There's more plastic in these caps than there is on these caps. That is also going to slightly impact your acoustics for the board. It's not a dramatic difference, but it's enough of one that it is something that's worth considering. The texture on these caps is really nice. If you like that sort of slightly gritty, chalky texture, these definitely have that going on. The purple is very deep on these legends, very deep, and the legends themselves are just so clean. Like, in a word, clean is what we've got going on with this. Clean, deep. This is bright and expressive. Same board, different vibes entirely, different feels. But I feel like that sort of, that's very telling of my tastes versus Brian's taste. We'll end up building the same board and it will be a completely different experience for the both of us every single time. Because he's got different tastes than I do. And that's what I try to build towards when I build keyboards for other people. I don't build it how I would want it. I build it how they would want it, because that's what they're paying me to do, right? But yeah, I am very happy with how this board turned out. I'm quite certain Brian's going to be happy with how this board turned out as well. But for right now, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream for now. This was a hell of a stream we had today. I really enjoyed this build. Let's take a look one more time at the completed build we've got here. Again, KBDFans Tiger Lite, goated TKL for the price. And with ink black V2s and Purpolch keycaps on it, you can't go wrong with this keyboard. This is a sick build. Really liking how this turned out. And I'm really hoping that the rest of your Sunday turns out to be relaxing and recuperative for you as we head into this final stretch leading into the holidays, New Year's, and all the traveling and everything. Be good to yourself. Be good to others out there. Remember, everywhere is a shit show right now. Grocery stores, retail outlets especially. Be patient with people. Be patient with yourself. And yeah, we'll see you again this coming Friday. Possibly sooner, depending on how I'm feeling and depending on how long the project lasts that I'm on right now for a temp job. But definitely Friday we'll be coming back and doing more gaming or potentially keyboard stuff. Depends on what comes up. But anyway, yeah. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of your Sunday, and we will catch you next time. Take care.